Hello H2 homies, welcome back, my name is Jack. Collecting stories that I felt had a bit of a twist to them, and well, I've had to split this up because one of these posts ended up taking over 20 minutes alone just to get through. A short video at first, but hey, this just means you get 2 extra doses of cat text today, so yay! Anyway, enjoy. Am I the a-hole for refusing to eat one friend's meat, but not another's? And no, apparently the title is not a euphemism. Beginning at the end of January, my husband, 35 male, Jake, and I, 30 female, have a group of friends from his college. Beth, 35 female, George, 35 male, and Lou, 35 female. Beth is jealous of Lou, the other female friend, because Lou dated someone who rejected her. Lou, Jake, and I live from Beth and George about 2 hours from a tourist city on what we call our homestead. We have a garden, chickens, a dairy cow, and we don't eat store-bought processed foods, except on special occasions. My family never eats meat or dairy unless we know where it came from. Since I am a stay-at-home mother, I make things from scratch, including butter, buttermilk, farmer's cheese, cream cheese, etc. Now, Lou lives a similar lifestyle. We will trade eggs or canned goods from our garden for goat cheese or things she grows. Her neighbor raises beef cattle, so we have met the cows before. We split a cow with Lou's family this past year. Beth and George were visiting the city not too far, so decided to have a dinner at my house. I made pasta with garlic bread, butter, chicken parmigiana. Our eating morals aren't something I talk about, so Beth and George weren't aware. Lou hadn't been by in a while, so when she got to our house, she brought a bag of her frozen meatballs that we had traded for. My kids were all raving about them as they really are so good, and Beth gets a look asking what is so special about them. I told her, Lou must have some secret sauce because I can never compete with them. Dinner goes well outside of that. So Beth and George planned to stop for dinner on their way home. Lou and I were making dinner when they arrived. Beth was holding a tray of meatballs that looked to be homemade. She was smiling and walked in asking everyone to try them. Now, I don't force my kids to follow the know your cow thing, but my daughter asked her what cow the meatballs came from. Beth laughed and said it was just grocery store meat and to try it, she would like it. My daughter said, no thanks. Beth went around trying to get people to eat them, but my family and Lou's family all said, no thank you. George was eating them, trying to save the situation, but she came into the kitchen looking like she was going to cry and started yelling at Lou and I, saying how we really turned our families against her and are refusing to try her food out of spite. I explained, we don't eat meat or dairy unless we know the animal. She laughed and told me to stop lying. She brought up the meal at my house had cheese, butter, chicken, and milk, and there's no way I knew that cow that Lou's meatballs had come from. Well, I explained that we did know that cow, our dairy cow, and the chicken. I said we call ourselves vegan when we are out. She just said, oh right, how convenient that when it's Lou's, it's fine, but not me. She grabbed George and they left. They haven't said anything to us besides one Facebook post Beth made about fake vegans who are only vegan when it suits them for attention, which makes me think we should have just tried her meatballs. So Opie essentially gets harassed with their ethical stance on consuming food. Oh, do you force your kids to eat like this? How do you have this complicated style of eating, but somehow Beth is never aware? Were you just purposely hiding it from her? I mean, she was just trying to be nice. She wanted to belong to the friend group a bit more. How are you basically saying you're vegans when you're out when you're clearly not? You're eating meat. What is all this ridiculous back and forth? Make up your damn mind already. So naturally, this causes OP to make some edits. We use know your cow with our children, but we mean vet your source or rancher. This has confused a lot of people. We aren't hanging around with cows and using their full names. Also, we were having prime rib and twice-baked potatoes for dinner with a smoked salmon dip as an appetizer. Eating meatballs right before prime rib that night is a bit weird in my opinion. Now, Beth copies things Lou does literally every time we are all together. She didn't bring meatballs because she thought they'd go well with our prime rib. It was because of her internal competition with Lou. Some other things to note. Opie didn't ask her to bring anything. They actually told her what the dinner was going to be beforehand. So this sudden bringing of meatballs, the only evidence of her bringing this was purely to try and one-up Beth. In case you care enough about it, the reasoning for their philosophy with consuming food is because they don't want to support people who mistreat their animals. They know some grocery store meat comes from cows who are abused, etc. That said, they are flexible on processed foods, but not animal products. Like, they're happy eating potato chips and stuff. Also, they're not forcing their kids to live like this. This is just their way of living. Clearly seems that if a child was pedantic enough about having some meat, they will get the meat for the kid. As to why Beth was never aware of this, despite being longtime friends, it's because Beth lives so far away with George, and they hardly see her. It's maybe every 2 or 3 years they actually do this big get-together. But on the other side of things, it's possible that maybe that's why Beth is acting like this. She feels just isolated from them all, and so the moment she's with them all, she wants to be as a part of it as she can. But OP, regardless, still thinks she was just trying to compete. Apparently, there's evidence in the past where once Lou gets a new haircut, oh well, Beth just happens and goes and gets the same thing. Let's remind ourselves, Lou is currently married to someone who Beth was originally rejected from. So what ends up happening just under a week later? So my post got a lot more attention than I thought it would, but I wasn't allowed to update the post. I was deemed not the a-hole, but many people told me I was an a-hole just for eating the way we eat. It's a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation in my mind. A bunch of people called me pretentious for eating this way, and a bunch of people told me I should tell everyone in our lives how we eat to avoid this happening again, but also berated me and called me idiots for eating this way. We don't tell people because it doesn't affect them. We aren't doing this for clout like we have been accused of. People accusing us of treating it some big secret. Reddit literally proved people riot and treat you worse because of your diet, be it vegan, vegetarian, whatever. We aren't going to tell people unless we have to still. People also said we sound like rich elitist white people living in mansions. Oh, we are not rich. Our area is called trashy. We are not white. Our house is literally less than 1,500 square feet. And there are 5 of us, but okay. We vax our kids and pasteurize our milk. Not everything is the stereotype you think it is. But okay, on to the actual update. So I did not apologize to Beth, mostly because we found out she was screwing Lou's husband for years. Lou and her husband, Phil, 39 male, lived near Beth and George until about 4 years ago when they moved by us. Apparently, when Beth was in town, she made some vague comments and threats to Phil about exposing that they were having an affair for around 4 years that ended when he moved. Phil told Lou proactively in attempts to save their marriage, so Lou is currently staying with us until she decides how to move forward. She is most likely going to file for divorce. George, Beth's soon-to-be ex-husband, has also reached out to Jake talking about the whole affair. He knew Beth struggled with jealousy over Lou, but didn't know how extreme it was until after the meatball incident and their drive home, where she continuously ranted about how much better she was than Lou in every aspect and how no one could see it. Beth did not come clean to him about the affair. Lou told him. I haven't heard anything about what Beth and George are doing. I showed Lou this post and she laughed a bit at some of the responses to people getting so upset about what we eat. So yeah, many people said Beth probably had good intentions with the meatballs, but I guess I just didn't describe the level of jealousy well, although we weren't expecting she'd take it so far, and not that she's solely to blame. Phil is equally at fault. Phil did say she was flirting with him and coming on to him for months before he caved, but it's not that it matters. I love that. Phil using that to, explain himself. Oh, if one day I just tripped and there she was, half naked. Golly gosh, wouldn't you know it? The entire floor was slick with oil. I couldn't get up. Oh, I'm the victim. So end of the day, folks, it's not about the meatballs. It's about who's banging who. But hey, despite Beth clearly being an a-hole person, some are still adamant that, Yuta, Opie could have tried a meatball and be done. Wasn't required to eat them all. It's common courtesy. The edit about who Beth was having an affair with and all that drama is irrelevant. It does, however, make it look like Opie is saying she's a bad person so I can be rude to her, and that's okay. It still is not. I'll leave that with you. I can see what they're trying to get at here. It is easy for us to immediately disrespect someone because of the actions they take, even though they're kind of irrelevant to the events that unfolded in the original post. Yeah, okay, Beth proven to be a cheater, but was Opie being unnecessarily stuck up with their morals to not just have one bite of what is already a dead animal that's cooked and stuff, you can have your practices, your ethical practices of consuming food, but when it's already cooked and made in front of you, you refusing to eat it isn't going going to save the cow's life, you know? It's like people when they destroyed all their Bud's Light because a trans person was now being like a spokesperson for Bud's Light. Like, oh no, you're really showing it to them by destroying the products you already bought off them. Now over to r/divorce with the title, lots of questions about my divorce from a narcissist. As a backstory, I have been planning to divorce my narcissistic, financially abusive husband. After a fight a few weeks ago, he abandoned the house and I changed the locks while he was gone. He and his shady lawyer forced him back into the house, so now we are living together while the divorce takes place. Being the narcissist that he is, he filed first. I'm sure he thinks that means he's in charge. He is the father of my 6-year-old son, and he has 2 kids from his first failure of a marriage that lived with us every other week. I've got some advice on a few things, so I thought I'd put them in one post. I hope that isn't against the rules. I know I need to ask my attorney, but it's expensive, and he's very frustrating, honestly. So 1. My state requires a 90-day wait between filing and the final divorce, so I'm stuck living with him until then. One thing that's become so outrageously painful is watching him and the kids do stuff together. He's completely poisoned his older kids against me, so they act like I'm not even there. I've stopped doing all housework unless it's for my son, so he's having to do all the cooking and cleaning. Dinner time is especially painful, as I have to listen to all of them eat together. He's even taken to making a plate for me so he can put on a show for the kids that he's the good guy. I think it's abusive of him to subject his older children to our divorce. I've asked him to stop having them over until he moves out, but he refuses. I called their mother, but she refuses to answer my calls. Would a judge agree that this is abusive behavior and ban the kids from my house until the divorce is over? If not, can I at least demand that his children aren't at the house if he isn't there? They often come home from school before he arrives home, so I'm basically a free babysitter. 2. My husband installed security cameras outside of my home several years ago. Now that we're divorcing, I'm worried that he's using the cameras to spy on me. Can I force him to remove the cameras or give me exclusive access to the app? I don't need him seeing my friends coming and going, and I don't want him knowing what's going on with my business. 3. My husband's lawyer has demanded that one of my friends, the one that helped me change the locks and throw his clothes in the garage, be banned from the house. My husband has gotten a temporary restraining order against him, but I don't think it will stick. Can he tell me who I can't or can't have in the house? If the restraining order is between my husband and my friend, does that mean my friend can't come to the house when my husband is at work? Do you see it yet? I'm sure you see it by now. 4. My husband has told me that he intends to keep the house and that he'll buy out my equity. It was his house before we married, but I was put on the deed during the last refinance. I want the house sold because I worry that my son will see that house as home rather than wherever I end up. 5. My crew is being super supportive and they're taking me out a lot to get me out of the house. Some of these nights are going very late. Can he use that against me? Can I take my son to my mother's house rather than leaving him home with my husband? I know him, and I know that he's going to try to use this as proof that he should have 50% custody. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Delusion. Yeah, the twist here being that clearly the OP is the insane narcissistic one. Demanding that his own kids be kicked out of his own house and banned from the place until the divorce is over, but then also upset that the husband would dare ban her friend from the house, which is not at all related to either of them, and took his personal belongings and chucked them into another space. Lucky you didn't tell your friend to take them off the property, otherwise I'm pretty sure that could be counted as theft. As this comment better summarizes, her ex-husband owned the house and lived with his kids there before he met her. He then added her to the deed. She claims they disrespect her by staying in their rooms, and she's tried to expose them to her ex-husband and her's marital issues because she wants them to take her side. And yeah, seems her account is mostly just posts over the last few months asking about how she can really gain or win anything over this divorce issue. All the posts stopped a few months ago, but oh man, some of the comments she's made on other posts she's reading in r/marriage and r/divorce really making me second guess whenever I see these kind of comments in the future. Like, your husband sounds like a classic narcissist. My husband is a narcissist and emotionally and financially abused me. If we end up divorced, it's 100% on him. Oh, mental load is a myth? Ha! You sound just like my almost ex. He has completely disregarded the load I'm under in this marriage. Who do you think does this? Who do you think does this? Who do you think does this? Blah, blah, blah. All these things I do, which is probably a very valid issue to bring up in their relationship. It might be actually why they're getting a divorce, but unfortunately she's actually just such a narcissist. I can't respect it. But no, you know what? I don't think this is necessarily narcissism. Or is it? Again, I'm not a psychologist. I don't know the right use of that term. But like, again, to come back to the whole changing the locks issue, it's crazier than than you realize. She asks, "Can he do this? I threw my husband out this weekend while he was out of town and changed the locks. This afternoon, my attorney called me. My husband got a lawyer and he's demanded access to the house, and for me to return the money I moved out of our joint account. You see, I'm in the house. I'm a stay-at-home mother, and I'm intending to force the sale of the house post-divorce. He wasn't here. He left after the fight, which I understood meant he had abandoned the house. My attorney is mad at me, saying that I have to let him back in. We haven't filed yet. But can he do this? I'm not sure what I will do if I have to live with him during this process." So he obviously didn't abandon the place. He went for a walk. She didn't throw him out. He left for a temporary moment of time himself, just constantly spinning the situation to try and benefit her in some way. End of the day, if she wants to leave, like she clearly does, she can. She can leave. In other posts, she mentions that she has a mother she can stay with her child. But no, clearly she wants to try and do this whole divorce issue as painfully as possible, because she's a stay-at-home mother who clearly hasn't made any plans about her financial future, and all she's got is hopefully stealing part of the profit made from forcibly selling this house that the man who actually owns this house is not planning to sell at all. Well, friends, that'll do for this short now. Thank you again for watching. I figure the next story deserves its own video because there are 6 updates within a span of a few weeks. You just wait and see. Bye-bye.